The question is that this House has considered e-petition 216539 relating to people who entered the UK as minors between 1948 and 1971. David Lammy.
I'm very proud to stand here on behalf of the 178,000 people who signed this petition, and I'm proud to stand here on behalf of the 492 British citizens who arrived on Empire Windrush from Jamaica 70 years ago. I'm proud to stand here on behalf of the 72,000 British citizens who arrived on the shores between the passage of the 1948 Nationality Act and the 1962 Commonwealth Immigrations Act, including my own father, who arrived from Guyana in 1956. But it's a very dark episode in our nation's history that this petition was even required. It's a very dark day indeed that we are here in Parliament having to stand up for the rights for people who have always given so much this country and expected so little in return. Mr. Austin, we need to remember our history at this moment. In Britain, when we talk about slavery, we tend to talk about its abolition, and particularly William Wilberforce. The Windrush story does not begin in 1948. The Windrush story begins in the 17th century, when British slave traders stole 12 million Africans from their homes, took them to the Caribbean, sold them into slavery to work on plantations. The wealth of this country was built on the backs of the Windrush generation's ancestors. We are here today because you were there. My ancestors were British subjects, but they were not British subjects because they came to Britain. They were British subjects because Britain came to them, took them across the Atlantic, colonised them, sold them into slavery, profited from their labour, and made them British subjects. That is why I am here, and that is why the Windrush generation is here. There is no British history without the history of the empire. And as the late, great Stuart Hall put it, I am the sugar at the bottom of the English cup of tea. And then 70 years ago, as Britain lay in ruins after the Second World War, the call went out to the colonies from the mother country. Britain asked the Windrush generation to come and rebuild the country, work in our National Health Service, work on the buses and on the trains, as cleaners, as security guards. So once again, Caribbean labour was used. They faced down the no blacks, no dogs, no Irish signs. They did the jobs nobody else wanted to do. They got spat at in the street. They were assaulted by teddy boys, the skinheads, the National Front, lived 5 to a room in Rachmanite squalor and housing. They were called and they served, but my God, did they suffer for the privilege of coming to this country. And yet, by God, they also triumphed. Sir Trevor MacDonald, Frank Bruno, Sir Lenny Henry, Jessica Ennis-Hill, national treasures, knights of the realms, heavyweight champions of the world, and Olympic champions wrapped in the British flag. Sons and daughters of the Windrush generation, as British as they come. And after all of this, the government wants to send that generation back across the ocean. They want to make life hostile for the Windrush children, strip them of their rights, deny them healthcare, kick them out of their jobs, make them homeless, stop their benefits. And they are imprisoned in this country, as we've seen for those who were detained, centuries after their ancestors were shackled and taken across the ocean in slave ships, pensioners imprisoned in their own country. Mr. Austin, it's a disgrace, and it happened here because of a refusal to remember our history. Last week, the Prime Minister, at Prime Minister's Questions, said we owe it to them and the British people. The Home Secretary said that the Windrush generation should be considered British. They should be able to get their British citizenship if they so choose. This is the point the government simply does not understand. The Windrush generation are the British people. They are British citizens. They came here as citizens. That is the precise reason why this is such an injustice. Their British citizenship is and has always been theirs by right. It is not something that the government is now choosing to grant them. Can I remind the government of Chapter 56 of the 1948 British Nationality Act? It said, every person under this Act is a citizen of the United Kingdom and colonies, shall be, by virtue of that citizenship, have the status of British subject. The bill uses the term British nationality by virtue of citizenship. I read this bill again last week when reading over the case notes of my constituents caught up in the Windrush crisis. Patrick Henry, a British citizen, arrived in Britain in 1959, a teaching assistant who told me, I feel like a prisoner who has committed no crime because he is being denied citizenship. Clive Smith, a British citizen, arrived here in 1964, showed the Home Office's school reports and still threatened with deportation. Rosario Wilson, a British citizen, no right to be here because St Lucia became independent in 1979. Wilberforce Sullivan, a British citizen, paid taxes for 40 years. He was told in 2011 he was no longer able to work. Dennis Laidley, a British citizen, tax records going back to the 1960s, denied a passport and unable to visit his sick mother. Geoffrey Greaves, a British citizen, arrived here in 1964, threatened with deportation by the Home Office. And Cecile Lureni-Cecile, a British citizen, 44 years of national insurance contributions to this country, payslips and bank account details going back over that time, her application for naturalisation rejected. And Huffley Seeley, a British citizen, unable to claim benefits or access healthcare in this country. Or Mark Balfour, a British citizen, arrived here in 1962, aged 7, refused access to benefit. The Windrush generation have waited for too long for the rights that are theirs. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over. There comes a time when the burden of living like a criminal in your own country becomes too heavy to bear any longer. And that is why we have seen in the last few weeks an outpouring of pain and grief built up over many years. And yet government ministers have tried to conflate the issue with illegal immigration. On Thursday, the Home Secretary said, I am personally committed to tackling illegal migration, making it difficult for illegal migrants to live here and removing people who are here illegally. I won't give way, I'm just going to finish. Indeed, during her statement last Thursday, the Home Secretary said illegal 23 times, but did not even once say the word citizen. This is not about illegal immigration. This is about British citizens. And frankly, it's deeply offensive to conflate the Windrush generation with illegal immigrants to try and distract from the Windrush crisis. This is about a hostile environment policy that blurs the lines between illegal immigrants and people who are here legally and even British citizens. This is about a hostile environment not just for illegal immigrants, but for anybody who looks like they could be an immigrant. This is about a hostile environment that has turned employers, doctors, landlords and social workers into border guards. The hostile environment is not about illegal immigration. Increasing leave to remain fees by 238% in 4 years is not about illegal immigration. The Home Office making profits of 800% on standard applicants is not about illegal immigration. The Home Office sending back documents unrecorded in second-class posts so that passports, birth certificates and education certificates get lost is not about illegal immigration. Charging teenagers £2,033 for limited leave every 30 months is not about illegal immigration. Charging someone £10,521 in limited leave to remain fees before they can even apply for indefinite leave to remain is not about illegal immigration. Banning refugees and asylum seekers from working and preventing them from accessing public funds is not about illegal immigration. Sending 9 immigration enforcement staff to arrest my constituent because the Home Office lost his documents is not about illegal immigration. Locking my constituent up in Yarlswood so she missed her midwifery exams is not about illegal immigration. Denying legal aid to migrants who are here legally is not about illegal immigration. Changing the terms of young asylum seekers' immigration bail so they cannot study is not about illegal immigration. Sending immigration enforcement staff to a church in my constituency serving soup to refugees is not about illegal immigration. The Home Secretary and the Prime Minister have promised compensation. They have promised no enforcement action will be taken. They have promised that the burden of proof will be lowered when the task force is assessing Windrush cases. The Windrush citizens don't trust the Home Office, and I don't blame them after so much injustice that has been dealt out. I quote Martin Luther King, who himself quoted St. Augustine when he said that an unjust law is no law at all. So I say to the Minister, warm words mean nothing. Guarantee these rights and enshrine them in law as soon as possible, and review a hostile environment that turns everybody that is different in this country into someone who is potentially illegal. And 230 years after the abolitionist movement wore their medallions around their neck, I stand here as a Caribbean, black, British citizen, and I ask the Minister on behalf of those Windrush citizens, am I not a man and a brother?
Order, order. I'm sorry, but we're not